Welcome to the UnToxic Boss Podcast, where leadership meets empathy and productivity meets compassion. I am your host, Janine K. Brown. We will dive into the world of effective leadership without toxicity. Get comfortable and learn to stop being a jerk at work. I am so excited about today's topic. And I know y'all say, oh, she's always excited. And I am, because psychological safety and building better leaders and work cultures where everyone can thrive really gets me excited. It's something I'm passionate about. And I'll even say I believe it's something that I was called to do, right? Something that I was put on earth to help positively impact. And so that's why I'm so excited. But we are live here today on LinkedIn. And I am really excited about that we have this live show that also airs on everywhere you listen to podcasts. So you can also hear us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Amazon, all the different places. But today's topic is something that I think everyone listening is going to be impacted by and can listen to. So and draw some insights from. So today's topic is dual roles, dual success, balancing motherhood and team leadership. Today's show is really going to resonate with so many women who are balancing the demands of motherhood and caregiver with leadership in the workplace. Whether you're a parent or a caregiver trying to manage a demanding career, or a leader looking for ways to support your team members who are parents and caregivers, this conversation is for you. So the first is about balancing your professional and personal responsibilities. And the other part is about how to continue to manage your career and be successful without losing your family and without losing work. So we're going to be talking about some time management. We're going to talk about setting boundaries. We're also going to be talking about what companies can do to put systems in place to maintain and to help their employees maintain this healthy balance. And we're going to do this with someone who I have watched personally be able to try to make all of this work. And she did it in a way that I don't think I had ever seen it before. And so I'm really excited to have our guest on the show today, not just because she's someone I know, but she's also someone that I have admired how she's tried to balance it too. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's perfect. And I'm also going to tell you I was on the outside looking in. She's going to give us the real deal and give us this information and share with us about how she was able to manage these dual roles and dual success and what that looked like for her in a high-performing workplace. So I want you all to join me in welcoming our guest, Mrs. Uso Sayers, to the show, wife and mommy. Hello, Uso. Welcome to the UnToxic Boss.
Hello, Janine. Thank you. And it's funny because I'm wearing my wife, mom, boss shirt today.
Well, you must work in tech to be wearing T-shirts to work today. So I clearly, that is a dead giveaway. She's got on a graphic T-shirt.
I love it. As my daughter says, I love it for me. I love that for me. After many years of wearing suits, I enjoy wearing just T-shirts. I actually put a cardigan on for you because I was trying to be semi-professional. So here I am.
Well, you know what? One thing we're gonna fix is wearing a T-shirt does not make you unprofessional, because we know many billionaires running companies that wear T-shirts every single day. They got their J's on, they got Converse on, and all kind of shoes and a pair of jeans. And so professionalism, we're gonna say we embody professionalism. We do not wear it.
Yes, no, it really changes nothing. Like for me, I am more comfortable, and it does not change how I perform. So I love it.
That could be a show in itself. You know, that might be one of our future shows, right? Does what you wear to work impact your performance? But before we get too far down the line, Uso, please introduce yourself to our audience, to the folks here on LinkedIn, so that they can know a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Uso Sayers. I am a wife, a mom, and a professional. I work in tech currently. I'm a senior program manager. Prior to my current role, I was the managing director in public accounting. And for those who are familiar with public accounting, may not know what a managing director is. The firm I was at, we had if you're not a CPA and you want to become a partner, the highest level you can get to is managing director. So basically I got to the top. And I worked in public accounting for 18 years. And you all know public accounting is not for the faint of heart. It is a very demanding profession. And I was very ambitious. I still am. But those were my young glory days. So I worked really hard. I'm originally from Guyana. So I came up here to do my master's and then started my career in public accounting after I finished grad school. I have two kids. They're now 14 and 11.
I love the fact that you mentioned that you have children. Were you taking care of anyone else when you were starting your career?
No.
Are you a single parent? You
No.
taking care of your husband?
I could not do half of the things that I've done had I been a single parent. But no, I'm married. My husband Nigel and I, we raise our kids together. So
I wanted to highlight that because, and I think you said it perfectly. Like you couldn't do some of the things that you've done without the support of your partner, Nigel. And I want to talk about some of the things you've done. So you mentioned earlier that you were trying to balance all of these things. So you come back to work after 18 months of raising or being at home with your son. And then you pick back up into NABA. So it wasn't just NABA as a member, you were serving on boards and board leadership. How do you prioritize what was most important to you, like the family piece, the work and trying to get promoted, and then also the visibility in an organization like NABA?
I came back. I took 18 months off of voluntary, not work. I came back to work after 6 months. But for me, I segmented it. So committed I NABA was part of my professional career. It being in NABA helped me to develop my personal networks, kept my industry expertise sharp. So when I was not doing that, I didn't feel the same way. So I prioritized this just the same way I prioritized work. Back then, I would do a lot of the NABA stuff in the evenings. We would have meetings either in the evenings or on the weekends. There are some days where I would take, like a day off to go to a meeting when we have our quarterly meetings. But to me, NABA was just as important as work, so I prioritized it. And the good thing for me, I was fortunate in that Nigel, when I met him, he recognized how important it was to me. So he was very supportive of me doing that. So that helped too.
Let me hear this right. You work, what time did you get to work?
Most days I was at work by 8:30.
So you work from 8 to 8:30, and then you would, I assume, somebody else would pick up the kids for you?
No, ma'am. I pick up my kids. I drop my kids to school. I pick my kids up. Up until recently, they literally just started taking the bus, maybe a year ago. But before that, we took them to school and picked them up. We would split because there was a time they may be at different schools. But over the years, that's one of the things I absolutely love and enjoy was picking up my kids and dropping them off. So I did not want to outsource that.
And then you would sometimes put the kids to bed and maybe work on your volunteer stuff, or would you also sometimes have to work on client stuff?
Sometimes I would do client stuff. So the way I split my week, and I started this prior, since I was dating. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday were my long days. So could go anywhere from 8 to 10, take breaks in between as needed. Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday, I would leave normal time, 5 or whatever. And Friday, I'm done work by 3. So those longer days, I would split it. If I had work to finish up because I left early to go pick up the kids or do something with them, then I would finish up in the evening. And there were times I actually would get up early in the morning if I need to finish something up if I had a deadline, because I really didn't like working on the weekends. So I really stretched Monday, Tuesday, Thursday as long as possible. And then Wednesday was my normal work day and Friday my shorter work day. Now, in football season, which was also busy season, I would actually log in Sunday afternoons to kind of catch up and prep for the week.
Now, I find it funny that you slid football season in there. So if you don't know Uso, and you're getting to know her on today's show, she is like a huge football fan. And like she participates in, what do they call them? Fantasy football. So I thought that was funny. And you are both an American football fan as well as a soccer, what we call soccer in the US. So I find that interesting. What you just talked about is capacity. And I just want to pause on that because if you are listening to our show and you're participating, you might be in the chat window thinking like, whoa, when did she sleep? And I think this is a thing that both women and leaders have to understand is that everybody has a different level of capacity. And I think you shared two things in that story is that you set boundaries, not only for yourself, but for others, but you also recognize your own personal capacity. And I love you used to always say after 3:00 on Friday, ain't nothing to do, right? There's nothing else to do. So why am I here? and I think those boundaries are really important. I also find, and I want to know, how did you address this with your employer, or did you ever hear this for yourself or with others as a leader? Sometimes when high performing employees are doing volunteer leadership both within the companies, right? It's an initiative that the company has, like their women's initiative, recruiting, going out to campuses and different things like that. And then this external leadership. Sometimes I've heard from our clients, uh, they feel like it's being used against them negatively, right? That their focus is split. They're not fully present to the work. How were you able to manage that with your leadership? And then as a leader, how did you manage that with your staff?
You just spoke the truth, because one of the reasons that I took a step back when I had my son is because I had partners that said that they felt like I was doing too much and I was trying to, like, breastfeed and all the things, and do NABA, and they felt like NABA was a distraction. So I took the time off. But for me, what happened, my work suffered because I was not the same. I wasn't on my game. Like when I split my day up and I know I have this, and this to do, I just couldn't get it together. And there was something that energized me when I was out volunteering and doing the work I was doing, helping others. Because being in NABA, I mentored others. I loved it. And not doing it actually negatively impact me. And I went back to one specific partner. I said to him, I said, I know that you think that this is taking away from my work, but let me tell you how it's impacting me now that I'm not doing it. I am going to step back in. This is the role I'm going to take. Let's talk about what you expect from me, from my work role, and what I will be doing at work and within NABA. And what I did was use NABA. I think that's when I took on the professional development role within NABA, because then I started building professional relationships. So it helped, doing both. But I just couldn't not, like, I don't know why, like doing that and doing work just helped me to have a system that would work. Even Nigel was like, please go back to NABA because you are not the same person.
And it's something, because sometimes these extracurricular things feed our soul.
Yes.
Which is the fire that burns in us to stay and continue to do our work.
Yes. And and one of the things that I always established with people who work with me is you do not need to work when I work. I work when it's convenient for me. If I send you a message that is outside of work hours, my expectation is not that you'll respond immediately. And I actually had an employee tell me, she's like, I know that, but the chime of the email gives me anxiety. So I was very happy when schedule send became a thing, because then I can still, because the problem was if I didn't send the email when I was doing the work, I would forget by the time that, the next day until it's late. So schedule send was godsend for me. But yeah, and I told my teams, like, I do not expect you to work the way I work. I expect you to figure out what works for you, because I am the type of person who works in the office. When I used to go to the office from like 9-ish, 8:30 to 9, that's when I start work. I get in by 8:30, but then I'm out maybe by 3 to go pick up the kids, and then I get back on when I need to later on. There are people who, when they get to work, they want to stay at work and don't leave work until they're done working. And once they leave work, they don't want to see their computer again. And it's nothing is wrong with that. That's why I feel it's important for workplaces to have flexible arrangements, and not flexible in terms of, oh, this person is working less hours in a week or anything like that. You're still working. I mean, I ended up working probably more than most people, because I'm trying to make sure that no one can say I didn't do something I was supposed to do. So the flexibility is not saying, oh, this person is now going to work 30 hours instead of 40 hours. No, it's giving people the flexibility to work at the time of the day that is beneficial for them and the things they want to do in their personal lives.
That's perfect. I don't know if they had this saying at the public accounting firm you worked at, but I know at the one I worked at, it was this: perception is reality. And perception is not reality, right? So your leaders had a perception that your work was suffering because now that you're a mother, you don't have the capacity to also volunteer in a leadership role outside the firm and meet your client needs and to meet their needs. But if they had slowed down and had a conversation with you first, right, putting you in a situation where you had to respond and react, right? Oh, they say this, almost as if they were right. They never had a conversation with you. And I think as leaders, sometimes we think our experiences inform how everyone is experiencing the workplace. And that is not true. I think the other thing that you said that I want to kind of drive home is you were talking about the culture. And so I think the other thing that I heard in what you said that I think is really important as we kind of transition to talking about what companies can do is that it's not just flexible work arrangements, it's flexible work styles, right? Acknowledging that work can be done and deadlines can be met, but sometimes our work style might be different, right? We may spend the majority of our day in the office, but have to leave at 3 o'clock, but could still take a conference call from the car. And that person doesn't have to be penalized if they're not in the place that you physically want them to be. And I think we need to be able to do that. And, but I'm gonna still say you got capacity that a lot of working mothers don't have. And so when you have a working parent, and what is your experience with a working parent or a caregiver? When have you seen in your organizations where organizations didn't properly support, and what could they have done better?
So one of the things that I've seen was leaders never took time off, or when they did take time off, they're always on calls during vacation. And I remember looking at those leaders and saying to myself, that's not the leader that I will be. So I always took my time off, and I encouraged my team members to take time off. I remember, and part of that might be because I wasn't born here and I came from a place where you took a month off at the time. I remember when I got married, I think I was a second year at the time. I blocked a month off for a wedding. And I kid you not, the scheduler person called me at least once every couple of weeks. Like, I noticed you have a month off blocked in August. Are you planning to take a month off? Yes, I am. And I did. And after that, I would take a minimum of 2 weeks at a time. And when I am off, I'm off. Now, as I got more senior, what I learned is that there were client demands that required my attention, but it didn't require me joining a call on vacation. What I did, I set boundaries. So there were some vacations where I would take no calls. If I'm gone for 10 days, I'm gone for 10 days. There were times when I was going somewhere, like if I go back home, I would leave for 3 weeks, but I would only take 2 weeks vacation. So I would say, hey, in the mornings on these specific days, I'm available. There were also times, I remember one year I took 4 weeks off, but there was one person that I was communicating with and getting updates from a period of time within there. So the first 2 weeks I was completely gone. When I came back for a few days, I checked in. There was something that I needed to get done. I did it. And then I was gone again. But to my team and to everybody else, my clients, I was gone for a month, but I did check in. And there are some people who are like, I can't do that. Like if I have to check in, that stresses me out. So everyone will have to set what works for them, but that works for me. Because then I felt good because I did all the things I needed to do. And I just went and I had a time with my kids and my family.
Yeah, I think pre-planning is a big part of kind of managing these dual roles too, right? Knowing when you're going to be out, empowering your team. So this is why I think delegation is really important as a leader. It's a key skill for leadership so that in your absence, the work can continue, but in your absence, you still cannot be replaced. Yes. I think that's a huge part of it, right? So having created this role in your company where it's like, even though she's gone, we don't ever want to see her leave, right? She does such good work.
You asked about the culture. One of the things that I did when I got into the leadership, because I go to partner meetings and stuff, I would talk to other partners about the perception they're creating for team members, because we would talk about succession planning. And I'm like, nobody wants to be a partner if this is what partnership is. If being a partner means I have to work on vacation, I can't do things I want to do with my kids. People don't want that. Not everyone wants to have a nanny or an au pair take care of their kids. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it, but we must create environments where people understand that they don't have to fully give up doing certain things if that's what they want to do in order to work. And I think that was one of the things I stressed, because even for my team members who did not have kids, I encouraged them to just take a night off, do things that you like. You may want to go to a concert. Now, you don't do it every night, and you don't do it, multiple nights in busy season, but take that break because it's healthy. Taking a break helps you to recharge and re-energize so you can come back and be your best selves. I think that's really important for companies to, as leaders, because it's not the company, it's the leaders. They have to set the tone from the top.
So we have women who feel like they've been penalized for motherhood, and I would agree with them. There is lots of studies out there and data that supports this. And I write about this in my book, Unstuck and Unstoppable, that there is a penalty for women who start motherhood or parenting. And then there's almost like an opposite, a reward for men, as seen as being more dependable because they have a family to take care of. Women's being seen as less dependable, that they have a children or a family to care for. How do you feel about your career progression? Do you feel like you were, like, it slowed down by having children, or did it stay on track?
So I smile because I made a deliberate choice to slow my career for a part of, and it's by a year, because I decided, like, I was moving from one state to another while I was pregnant, so I took a year kind of step back. I also made a decision after my second child was born to switch companies because I wanted to be a certain type of parent. I wanted to, and I probably could have done it at my previous firm, but at the time I didn't feel seen or heard. And when I was leaving is when I was told a lot of things about how good I was. But by then I'd already committed to the other company. So, I'm not going back on my word. So it's important to let your employees know how much you value them if you value them. But what I was going to say, it's not just companies that do that. I had friends that did that. They wouldn't invite me because I'm a mom. They it's a societal thing. People feel like when you have kids, you must live a certain way. You must do certain things. You mustn't be out in the streets, as they say. Mothers are people. And for you to be the best mother that you can be, or best parent that you can be, you have to be your best self. Or whatever those things are that make you happy, you shouldn't give it up. You shouldn't be, required. Sometimes I feel people have to give up certain things in order to be a parent. And it's not necessary. No, if that's your choice, totally fine. But I had to force my friends to invite me out. And I think Nigel probably told me, like, it's okay for her to go out. Because we were like, well, I don't want to invite you out. I know you have the kids. I can manage my schedule. And it's the same thing with the work environment, because people are like, well, I don't want to send her out of town because I know she has the kids. You don't know what her support system is like. You don't know what people take things away from you without consulting you. So I had to force people to come to me before they make decisions for me or on my behalf.
So what do you think would you say are the top 3 things women should do who have these dual roles and they're still focusing on the dual role and the dual success? What are, like, maybe three big things that you think they need to do at work so that they can maintain their success?
The first thing they need to do is try to minimize mom guilt, because mom guilt makes us do a lot of things different from the way we would have done it had we not been guilty about doing it. And for those who want to know, mom guilt is where you feel guilty for doing something for yourself that does not include your child or that takes you away from your child. And as a professional, try to think about what your life would have been like had you not had a child. And now that you have the child, how can you, and balance is not the right word, because it's not a balance. It will never be a balance. At the end of the day, your family, your children will always be the most important thing. But work is also important because, one, it gives you a certain level of satisfaction, gives you income. So you figure out the best way to have those two things. And it's important to do it in a way that you enjoy doing it, because you don't want to hate work, right? And you don't want to be regretful for things that you gave up or you think you gave up when you weren't with your child for work. And that's where the mom guilt comes in. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. Like, we do random things. We have a blast. When I'm not with my kids, I'm not guilty for not being there, because when I was there, I know that I made an impact. And even when I'm not with them, they know how much I love them. They know how much I'm committed to them. So when I am away doing different things, I can do it without feeling like, oh, here, which means I'm not cooking for my kids, or I'm not, those, I separated those thoughts. And that helped me to be fully engaged when I'm at work. Likewise, when I'm not at work, I'm fully engaged wherever I am, be it on a board somewhere, be it even with my friends. I travel a lot. I love hanging out with friends, brunching. Those things help me to recharge. I may not always be able to go to a spa or whatever, but just seeing a friend for 2 hours on a Friday night after a stressful week, so recharging for me. No, not everyone is an extrovert, so everyone recharges differently. But whatever that is for you, take the time to do it, and don't feel guilty about taking that time to do it, because if you are not recharging yourself and refreshing yourself, you're not going to be your best self. So that's one. Two, have a support system. It's okay to have help, and you choose the type of help that you want. Whatever it is, you outsource the things you don't want to do, and don't feel bad about doing that, because social media and the world will make you feel like you're a bad person if somebody else picks up your groceries or if somebody else does your laundry. No, you are a smart person for doing things the way that's good for you. I firmly believe that. And I know sometimes even family members will make you feel bad for doing some of those things. And that's why I don't carry guilt. I am like, if it's one thing when I pass, people put on her tombstone, she really didn't care. No, I do me for me. And I'm very committed to everything that I do. And I try my best to do it to the best of my abilities. I also say no. Like, that's it. You ask me something, if I can't do it, no. And I have no qualms about telling you no. And I don't feel bad for saying no. If I can't do it, I can't do it. Don't let mom guilt stop you from doing anything. Put yourself, prioritize yourself, and be comfortable saying no. That's my top three.
I love that. Can I add one? That's your top three. I'm going to wrap all of that in a big bowl, because what that sounds like to me is communicate, right? Having good communication with yourself, right? Being really clear with yourself about what's important, creating a support system that's going to both invite you out for a drink, but also to pick up wherever you left off when you are away, and then communicating, saying no. Don't be hemming and hawing about if you can, because I think because we can't do everything, right? I'm not a mother. I've never been a mother, but I've been a caregiver, and I know how important it is to be able to take care for yourself when you are caring for others. And I think sometimes we feel like we got to put everybody else first, and the person you're caring for will be thriving, and you're the one in the hospital or in the doctor's office with high blood pressure or, other issues, health related issues, acne, hair coming out, all of these things, right? Because you haven't done anything and taken care of your own self and had some downtime. So as we wrap up our conversation today, so this has been so good. And I think you have really outlined so clearly and with joy. We're going to jump on the joy bandwagon, because I felt like warm and fuzzy listening to you. And I know how you do this, right? I felt like it was really eye-opening. So as a leader, and we see in organizations that, a lot of people, men and women, but specifically women, they don't have the support system you have, right? You had it for a while in a big firm. You moved to a smaller firm, felt far more supported and had more flexibility. But there are, and now you're in tech, right? And you work 100% remote, which I think the pandemic has been able to really help women do things that they've never been able to do before when it comes to caregiving. But what would you say to a leader in an organization that is a little toxic? They haven't become an untoxic boss yet, and they are managing the capacity of other people. They're very strict about work hours and where people should work, but their teams aren't performing. What would you say to that sort of toxic leader?
One, my first advice to that leader would be to seek the counsel of others. Every leader should have a coach. More than likely, to get to your leadership role, you probably had mentors and sponsors along the way. But as a leader, you are transitioning to a different role in your organization. And sometimes it's difficult for that transition. I remember when I was moving from what I call manager Uso to partner Uso, I got a coach, because I recognized that the way I was from a tactical standpoint, and yes, I was very successful as a tactical employee. That success was not the only thing that wouldn't translate into that leadership. I needed to move into more of a social, strategic person, a strategic leader, as well as an emotional leader. I always say that I think being a parent helped me to be actually a lot more empathetic, is if that's the right word. I'm thinking of a different word, but we'll go with that one for now. And it's funny because there were things, my poor kids, I probably raised them like they were employees, but there were things that they would tell me, and I was like, you know what, that actually makes sense. And I would bring that same, whatever it is, because they had no qualms about correcting me when when it's necessary, but when they would say something to me or correct me about something. Or I remember one time I think I said something to my son in a tone that was not nice, and my daughter came to me, she's like, well, you hurt his feelings, that was not nice. I'm like, I'm sorry, and I apologized. And that's for me, that was growth, right? As a young leader, I was so gun-ho, but then as I started to progress, I got different. But coaching is what really helped me to be a better leader, because having someone else help you understand how the things you do may impact others. And I know that a lot of times leaders are coming from a place that they think is helpful, and they're caring, and they're doing it because they want to see their team members grow and develop. But the way in which they do it may say otherwise. And the other thing I had to recognize is that everyone is different. So I could not treat every team member the same way. So having this one rule where everybody must do X, that does not work, because everyone is different. And when I talk about being a parent helping me to see, it's because having two kids that I think I'm raising very similarly, they're completely different people. And just imagine with, teams where you have 20 people under you, they're different people. So what works for one person may not work for the other person. Get to know your team members, get to understand them. And sometimes people are coming to work with a lot. So just sometimes stop and just say, how are you doing? You'd be surprised to know how having a simple conversation with your team members can change the relationship that you have with them. And sometimes just ask them, what is one thing that I can do to make your life easier? I used to ask my team members, I was like, when y'all wake up in the morning, are you excited about coming to work, or is it a drag? And I have people like, it's a drag. It's like, and I know that I was fairly tough on people. I remember when your podcast first started, I went to somebody and I was like, was I a toxic boss? And they're like, no, you cared. And actually, when you stopped saying things to us, we knew we effed up.
So they were able to read you like a child-parent relationship too, right? So when mama not talking, mama mad. So we love that. So this has been such a great conversation. And I think, I hope our listeners, those of you who are here in the chat with us today on LinkedIn Live and social media, I hope that this is a conversation that inspires you as a working parent and caregiver to say, you know what, the sky is still the limit. I can still get to the top of my goals. All I need to do is make sure I'm communicating, putting myself first, creating boundaries and those things. And I think if you are someone who is managing a diverse team, a lot of different people with different needs, but they are caregivers and parents, is that you do not withhold opportunities from them, right? You let them speak up for themselves, but you also recognize what people need. One of my favorite things to ask people is, are you okay? When I asked that question, I think as a leader, when I was a hiring manager and I'm walking around the corporate halls, is, are you okay? I got all sorts of responses, but what I always got was the truth. And so if you want to know the truth, ask your employees real questions that matter. Uso, thank you for joining us. Please let everybody know how they can connect with you. Uso also has a side gig. You can tell them about that as well as we wrap up today.
And actually, one thing before I do that, asking someone if they're okay, you'd be surprised to know that you might be the only person that asks them that question for that day, that week, sometimes even that month. And it means a lot to people. So I'm here on LinkedIn, Uso Sayers. So if you go to regular LinkedIn stuff /Uso Sayers, you can add me there. My side gig, so I do event planning, and my event company is Karibea Events. So KaribeaEvents.com is our website. And then I also manage my daughter's book about believing in yourself. And that website is at least so powerful. So yeah, I love doing many things, as you can see.
Yes. What did I tell y'all about capacity? Man, I don't have children and she still does more than I do because we all have different capacity and there's no shame game in that. So thank you all for being on the UnToxic Boss today and joining us for this really important conversation. We have some free resources for you. So if you visit our website, Everyday Lead website, you will get those resources. You can download those. You can also check in the chat window. We love talking about psychological safety, and you'll see an article that I wrote for the Journal of Accountancy that gives you a really big definition of psychological safety. It also has some great questions in there for you to ask yourself and your teams. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Follow us on social media for more updates and insights. Together, we can build a workplace where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. We want to introduce you a resource that we know that will impact your life and your career. It's a book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. It is the ultimate guide to overcoming obstacles and achieving your goals. With practical tips and inspiring stories, the book will help you leverage your value, increase your visibility, and gain recognition to accelerate your career. Get your copy anywhere you buy books, either on Amazon or at our website at unstuckandunstoppablebook.com.